Why not? Hey, didn't see you there. What's going on? So today I wanted to talk about a general studio update, kind of where it's at. Finally got the 3000 I've been wanting for forever, years at this point. Finally got a mixer that suits my needs for a very specific thing that I was looking for that took a while to find. Yeah, it's kind of changed my mental state and outlook when it comes to making music. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've been cranking out basically a track, if not two tracks a day for maybe past 10 to 14 days now. And it's been awesome. And there's a lot of things that going back to the 3000 has taught me, kind of bringing me back to my roots and making me realize the type of music I want to make. So let's kind of just, let's chat about it a bit. This is future me talking to past me. If this conversation gets a little weird, you could just jump to this timestamp where I start talking about the actual studio setup. Okay, cool. All right. So, honestly, I feel like I redo my studio at this point weekly, but it's always little changes. So definitely one of the biggest catalysts when it came to redoing the whole studio again, like heavy redoing the entire patch bay, changing up things, removing a lot of stuff, came because of the MPC 3000. And the mixer definitely had a big role in that as well. I got the mixer shortly before getting this, and that kind of jump-started things, but then when I got the 3K, it all made perfect sense. And I guess, I don't know, I've always had I've had dollar setups, I've had in the box setups ish, and then I've always kind of had hybrid setups, and I jump back and forth between the two, and there's always like this 80-20 rule of, I don't know, like 80% DAW-less, 20% in the DAW to kind of help finalize the final product and polish things and maybe add crashes here and there and fix that one kick you forgot to bring in, or oh, you left the clap going for an extra bar, let me go and delete that. So that's great, and that's essentially kind of where I'm at now with this thing. And the man, how do I even say this? So the MPC 3000 kind of brought me back to my roots in realizing that simplicity is king when it comes to cranking out music and just tunes. And the stuff that I truly enjoy are focusing a lot more on just cool sounds and synth lasers and things like that. It's just about a feeling, it's about a groove, and it's about just this vibe, creating a vibe. And that's what the MPCs have always had to me. The 4K had it, the 2000 had it, the 1000 kinda had it, the 60 definitely has it, and the 3000 to me found this really good balance between all of those things. And what I mean by this vibe and this groove is it doesn't take much. It's just this, man, this conversation's getting so like heady, and I just don't know how to explain it. It doesn't take much. Simplicity is king when it comes to a lot of these things. And a lot of the music I make, it's not even that I can't do it, it's just in a sense easier to do simpler things on here, but creative simpler things. And that made all the difference when it came to making music, and it made me realize and made me appreciate the music that I actually enjoy making. Because at the end of the day, it's nice to have a ton of awesome, cool things, but I can easily make music without any of those things. What I need to make music, I mean, I can make music on whatever, but what I really enjoy having a lot of fun making music on is a sampler, a really good sampler. And this sampler speaks volumes to me. And yeah, before I get too deep with this, let's just kind of talk about the routing of this whole thing. Sorry for the long-winded conversation. All right, so this is the setup. I make like 90% of my music on just this thing with this setup here. I recently got this little turntable here to start sampling records, but I quickly realized I rinsed through a lot of my records already when I was making tracks on the 4000, and I can't technically go out and start digging right now because, yeah, so I had the Pro 3 here for a while, and that was doing my bass lines, and I now have it up back on the rack behind me. I might put the Pro 3 back here because I realized having the 3K and like a simple mono kind of paraphonic synth was like, I can make music for days on that setup. On the 3000, not sure if you can see with this plant in the way, I have 10 outputs of audio coming out of the back, plus a bunch of MIDI stuff. MIDI input A is from the ERM multi-clock, and that's going to be tying in Ableton's tempo to the MPC, but like very tight. It's expensive. The ERM multi-clock is expensive, and it's not a fun thing to purchase because it's very much like a utility thing, right? But having the convenience of being able to hit play in Ableton and have your tempo be constantly perfectly on, because I have experienced that issues with other USB to MIDI type converters, but the ERM multi-clock is so spot on that I can easily go back and edit my tracks if I needed to, copy paste things without having to worry about stuff kind of getting, you know, the beginning of the kick transient getting cut off and things like that. So input A is just taking audio, or taking MIDI from the ERM multi-clock. Input B is also taking MIDI from the Pro 3, and output B is going to the Pro 3. That's on its own loop. That's how I had it set up here. I figured why not just keep it here that way. But loop A is very complicated, but output A goes to all my racks or all my synthesizers, and they're all on their own MIDI channels. Like if I go through my tracks here, you might not be able to see it, but Pro 3 is here, it's on B, and then I got Peak, Deckard Stream, and the Expander. Those are the three main synths that I use the most, so I just have them here by default on my floppy. This I have like my main setup that I just plop in here, let it load up, and I'm off to the races. But the Launch Key Mini over here, this is going MIDI out into the ERM multi-clock, and the ERM multi-clock actually has a really good MIDI manager. So I can say take MIDI in and merge it with the clock input and send that to the MPC 1000. So I can use the Launch Key Mini to play synths on the MPC 3000 but still get clock from Ableton. It's super awesome. Again, the ERM multi-clock, I know it's pricey, but as soon as I got it and started working and using it, I quickly asked myself, why didn't I buy it sooner? I love it, and it's super great, and I bought it full price. It's not a sponsor video or anything like that. And yeah, it's great. So that's kind of the MIDI setup of things. When it comes to the audio things, I have each individual pad on its own output. If we go here, you can see out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6. This is on effects, which is our main output, left and right, and 8. And again, these that are on 1 through 8 also have the master output, the stereo output, turned to nothing. If we look at the mixer, I take those 10 outputs and I have, of course, pads 1 through 8 here, 7, which is the sample. I know I spoke about it there, basically having it be out on the master channel. That's actually this here, left and right is on 9 and 10. So this is the master output. So if anything on the MPC says effects out, it actually goes here. Pad 7 doesn't go to 7. And I can quickly change that if needed. That's kind of how I was doing it. Remember I said I change this stuff up all the time. But basically right now I have these 8 or 7 channels ready to go, and a 7th one if needed. And then this is left and right stereo, because sometimes if you sample in stereo and you go to assign it to an individual output on the MPC 3000, it automatically assigns it to 2 outputs, which I didn't want. I wanted it to automatically sum itself to mono, but it doesn't do that. So I have this here, and the reason I also have this here is to utilize the effects on the MPC 3000. It has a really good delay that's really fun. So I'll run the sample through here, and that's really it. And I guess for the rest of the inputs, 11 here is my microphone, because I like to sample a lot of my actual percussions that I have laying around the house, or just random things, or just clap in different rooms really loud and see what it sounds like. Then I have Deckard Stream, Peak is on 1314, and then Pro 3 is on 1516. Very bare bones, basic setup. And it's awesome. And the reason I went with this mixer here, this is the Soundcraft FX16 Mark II. I almost kind of didn't want to do a video on this because I didn't want to blow it up in prices. But it's really good because it has one thing, which is this, 16 outputs, and they are post fader. Has 16 inputs plus 16 individual outputs, and those are post fader. So if I'm over here doing this to the kick drum, that's going to get recorded in my audio interface, and I want that. But what's great is I can just hit these buttons and record pre-fader, so this doesn't affect it. I can hear what it's going to sound like here, but I can record everything. That's good for like live bands and whatnot, but not for me. I actually wanted to get the mix down utilizing the analog circuitry because it sounds really good. And another thing really quick is a lot of the sample packs that I've been doing and I plan on doing, I just released a Model Cycles one. I run them through here just to get a little bit more oomph out of the sounds themselves. So, you know, you can tweak the EQs and kind of get some warmth. So yeah, if you want to check out some of the sample packs, they're here. There'll be more there eventually if you're watching this in the future. And yeah, so having each individual output be post fader was very, very important to me. And then this is all kind of handled by my patch bay and my audio interface, which is right down here. All right, so when it comes to my patch bay and audio interface kind of routing setup, it's again very simple. Channels 1 through 10 of the mixer, which were everything. Basically everything goes into the top row. These are all my outputs of my gear. These are all inputs to my interfaces and my DAW. So output of the MPC goes into 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10. Those then get normaled and they just automatically drop down and go into the mixer. We can ignore this. So this is the outputs of my MPCs. This means I can send it wherever or just take something else and override the original signal. So those go into the mixer, and then same with this. This is basically everything else in my studio. This is Peak, for example. This is the Deckard's Dream. There's a couple other random things here, but what's great with this setup is I can just plug in literally whatever. And I left a lot of space on my desk specifically for that reason, so I can just try whatever. And I am using the Claret 8 Pre X Thunderbolt. I've had this forever. Full transparency, I work at Focusrite, but I've been using their stuff since before I worked there. I got this thing a while back, the Octopre Mark II Dynamic. They don't make this one anymore, but they have the Scarlet version now. The reason I like this is because each channel has its own compressor, so I can use my microphone with a little bit of a compressor, or if I want to run my drums through here, I can just say, cool, you know what? Let's take my kick drum and run it into this channel instead, and then get a little bit more compressor on there if I want. And you know, it's just so fun to just send stuff everywhere. Ninja Tune Zen Delay, which is just kind of has, oh, this is something else, has cables that I can just patch in and send something to it and then back in if I wanted. And then this is the ERM multi-clock. It'd probably be a little difficult to see there, but this kind of just runs everything, and I take an audio output of this, which is why the MIDI clock is so tight. But yeah, 16 inputs. I originally got this because it has dual ADAT and I was gonna run 24 inputs, but I quickly realized that my brain would explode if I had 24 inputs going at one time, because 16 is a pretty good solid number, especially considering that the MPC 3000 is taking up 10 of those. So I technically have, let's count those 10 as one, and then, you know, basically 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 inputs, or, you know, 3 stereo synths, which is more than enough to make music. It doesn't need to be complicated. Don't overcomplicate things, because my head, if there's too many things going on, I just lose track of what I'm actually trying to do. I lose focus. I need stuff to be so streamlined and so straightforward if I want to just crank out music and have fun. I don't want to keep tinkering all day with sounds and whatnot. That's why I like samplers, because you commit to audio. If something's on a preset or whatever, you just kind of keep tinkering and messing with it, and next thing you know, you completely destroy the patch and now you're working on a whole nother song. So if I can just commit something to audio, cool, that's it. That's what I got to work with. Let's move on to the next thing and keep it going. But that's kind of this whole setup here, and that just runs into Ableton, which yeah, I guess I'll show. All right, so when it comes to Ableton, it's pretty straightforward. Basically got group 1 here, which has my kick, clap, hat, open hat, basically tracks 1 through 7. Remember, 1 through 7 are the main tracks, and then 8 I always have as my bass, so that's outside of the group. I basically have a drum group. And remember I mentioned that 7 originally was my sample track, but it's not anymore. It's now my percussion track as extra percussion stuff. So that's 1 through 7 is percussion, 8 is the bass, 3000 left and right is the left and right output, which on my mixer is 9 and 10, but on my audio interface is 13, 14, because it has a loopback feature which lives on 9 and 10, or 11 and 12. Don't worry, it makes sense. So all this from here to to all this is all just the MPC 3000. It's crazy. Like I love that's all that. Then I have Peak if I need it, Pro 3, which I basically always use, so I might as well move that there. My microphone, which sometimes I'll just track myself clapping to my song for 5 minutes to just get a little bit more life to my track. And then of course I got the DD over here on the end, and then the ERM multi-clock on its own little plugin, but I have that grayed out so it doesn't draw any of my mental bandwidth. I know I'm a weirdo, but that's the setup. So here's a track that I was working on last night, and I still have the session up, and basically everything gets tracked into its own little thing, and I'll record. So this one I did differently. I wanted to try a new approach where I just kind of recorded the main parts and then arranged it afterward, and then kind of flip the sample again within Ableton, because there are some parts where I'm like, oh, it's a little too repetitive. Let me go in there and kind of like take this one little hit out and just repeat this twice and whatnot. And yeah, so basically all of this whole entire song, you can see that the Pro 3, Peak, microphone, and the Deckards are completely empty. They're not even being used. ERM multi-clock, get out of here. So this was all done on just the MPC 3000. And do I want to play it? Yeah, I might as well play it. Music's kind of weirdly personal, I guess. I don't know. I don't release a lot of the music that I make through YouTube, so it's weird to play music that I've made outside of YouTube on YouTube. But anyway, here it is. This is
What attracts many of us to jazz is the unique freedom associated with it.
So we got like this cool sample that I kind of chopped up. Bass, which was actually a sample of my Pro 3. Remember that commit to audio thing? I kept messing with the bass sound and changing the filter and messing up, and I just said, forget it. Let me just record a single note and sequence it. So that's what I did here. And then, yeah, I have some crash. This crash here, this was added after the fact. So little things like that, I don't like taking up tracks on my MPC, so I figured I would just add the crash later. But being able to just press play in here and have the MPC sync up, and then I don't have to worry about things kind of falling off the grid, like everything is, it's a little early. ERM, what are you doing to me? Oh, I think I still have my my MPC 4000 preset on there. But I mean, look at this. If you go and highlight this, it's not even a millisecond ahead, so we're totally fine. Yeah, that is like microscopic in the vein of timing issues. But yeah, that's it. Like, it's so easy to just make a track. Here's the main idea again at the beginning. If I just play it, and it's dead silent because I'm soloing.
What attracts many of us to jazz is the unique freedom associated with the art.
This was like pattern 1.
What attracts many of us to jazz is the unique freedom associated
2, basically. And then I think this was pattern 3. And then this is pattern 4, which I didn't end up using. Essentially, I just try to flip the sample as many times as I can. Right, but this is the main part.
many of us to jazz is the unique freedom associated with the art.
Yeah, and then I just arranged it as I would like. I gave it an extra 2 bars here of just sample fade in for no reason. I don't know why. But then I actually start the track here, and that's why I did it on this like gray-ish section as opposed to the dark gray, to kind of help me visually represent where things should happen and whatnot. Ableton's actually pretty good at that, and I love making organic sounding and feeling music, but I'm making music for clubs and dance floors and to get people grooving, so they do kind of have to fall within some sort of a guideline when it comes to tempo, and not necessarily tempo, but just like a time signature. They have to be predictable to an extent, but not too predictable, and they have to be really easy for DJs to play, otherwise DJs ain't gonna play them. But yeah, all right, I'll talk to you now. So yeah, that's kind of the studio setup. It's super simple, super basic. That track, I think I made the idea, sampled, chopped, arranged in an hour is about it. So think about that. An hour in your day, if you get comfortable with things that you're using, you can make a song. If you want to be a psychopath and think about it, you can make 24 songs in 24 hours, right? Of course, that is, don't do that. That's crazy. But the fact that if you put in time and learn stuff and just get something that gels with you really well, that feels like you and is the way you enjoy making music, you can make music forever and have so much fun doing it. That's why I love MPCs in general. And that's one thing that still to this day I find hard to find on other machines. Some machines come close, but when I hop on something as streamlined, as simple as this 3000, I am exactly where I've always wanted to be. And I guess here's another, let's have a little bit of a heart to heart. So a lot of this stuff too, like you do it, or at least I kind of felt like I was doing it in a weird way, because having an expensive piece of gear out made me feel maybe as a better producer than I really was, But really thinking about it, having expensive gear literally means nothing if you can't use it and if you're not familiar with it and if you're not comfortable with it. So, having a lot of expensive and fancy gear, if you're not good with it and you're just getting it to get it in hopes of maybe getting a few more likes on Instagram or a few more plays on your song, if it's like on the cover or something like that, it's definitely the wrong reason to go about doing this. And you're smart. I know you already know this, but I don't want to say I'm guilty of it because I don't know if I ever really felt that way. But I think when I started utilizing this again and kind of clearing my desk and setting things up the way that I truly wanted to work and in ways that really inspired me, I realized, what the hell was I doing before? I don't think I really had an aim for setting up things the way that I was setting them up. So this, I've very much been like, okay, what is my dream studio? Essentially, it's an MPC 3000 with a good mixer. That's my dream studio. Is it messing around with vinyl and trying to sample vinyl? Not really. I'm trying it, but I'm giving it the old college try, but it's not really gelling with me that much. I've been doing a lot of other types of sampling, utilizing splice and sample packs that I've had forever and just running a feed into here. So it's okay. As much as I want to sample vinyl and be super old school and cool and like doing it the way the legends used to do it, I don't know. My workflow's just not fully there yet. My workflow's fully here, but not there. So, be inspired by what inspires you, and be inspired by just looking at your studio setup. When I wake up, I make my coffee and I walk into my living room and I see this over here in the corner, I smile. I'm happy to see this setup and I just want to make music. If I'm on the couch watching TV, I can see this in the corner of my eye saying, hey, come make a song. So I turn off my TV and I come and make a song. It's more inviting to use my setup when it's set up the way that I want it to be set up. So yeah, I know this is a very long-winded conversation and basically saying just do what you want to do. Don't worry about what other people say. Don't worry about any of that stuff. And the other thing too, in times like what we're going through right now, you don't have to always be making music. Creativity comes in boredom, and that's where some of the best ideas come from, is just kind of like chilling and thinking about stuff. Don't force yourself to work. If you don't want to work, don't work. But when you're ready to work, be ready. Think of yourself as like this creative antenna waiting to catch a creative signal. And if you're not in front of your gear, you're probably going to miss out on that signal. So yeah, I don't know. This is a weird one. This is definitely a weird one, but I hope you're doing okay. And I appreciate you again hanging out. And yeah, I'll catch you soon. You already know the drill. Share the love, share the knowledge. Knowledge is power. Peace.